Hello, welcome back. Today we're looking at Business Statistics Chapter 4, which looks at descriptive statistics to help us calculate and interpret the measures we find. So when looking at numerical descriptives, we reviewed in Chapter 2 already that we need to center or look at where the data concentrates. We also need to look at variability, so how far the data is spread out, and then the shape of whether the values are skewed. So again, the reason why we look at all these characteristics is to make sense of the data we just collected. So for the mean measurements, the formula we want for the population mean is the sum of 1 to n divided by n number of data. And so Excel actually does that fairly easy for us. So let me show you. So trying to establish the mean in Excel, also known as the average formula, all you have to do is write equals average and then select the data that you want to use. So in this case, we're looking at this set of data between F1 and F10. So if we want to figure out the mean for this data we collected, all we have to do is go here, write equals average, and then select open parentheses and select this data F1 to F10. Then you press enter and the data comes out to 24 for this data we collected. Similarly, we might want to find the midpoint, also known as the median. Now the median is going to be similar to your mean. You're going to use the formula median. So equals median, open parentheses, select your data, and then press enter. In this case, the median is going to be 22.5. Now you could do this manually, but Excel does it for you, especially if you have numerous amount of data that you are collecting. So the last one that you want to look at is the mode. Now the mode, similar to the average and the mean, is calculated the same way. You just write the formula equals mode and then open parentheses and select the data F1 through F10 in this case. Press enter and your mode here turns out to be 10. There's a useful YouTube video called An Average Video, Mean, Median, and Mode by 2 Minute Classroom that you might want to refer to if you want to become more familiar with these formulas. There is also a formula for the geometric mean. And this is for a multiplicative average where, again, similar to the mean, you go here, write equals geo mean, open parentheses, select your data, and then you get the geometric mean for that data. Now, another useful formula in Excel that we use for in this chapter to do the exercises given is the mid-range. And this is the point halfway between the lowest and your highest point of data. So here it's fairly easy because we only have 10 values, but when you have hundreds of items in your data set, it is not as easy to calculate. So what you want to do is you want to find your minimum x plus your maximum x and then divide that by 2. So in order to come up with a mid-range, what you're going to do is you're going to use the minimum formula, which is equals min, and then you select your data and come up with your minimum. Similarly, you're going to do the same thing for maximum. So use equals max, select your data, press enter, and then you're going to add those two values together and divide those by 2. So in Excel, fairly easy, you just select that cell plus the maximum cell and divide by 2, and you come up with 27.5, which is going to be your mid-range for this set of data. Now there's also what we call the trim mean And here you can actually specify the percentage of how much you want to trim that mean number. So in this case, we're using a 5% trim mean, which is usually used in this type of formula. And fairly simply, you write equals trim mean, open parentheses, select your data. And for the trim mean, you actually are going to put a comma and then the percentage of how much you want to trim it by. So in this case, we're using 5%, so you're going to write comma 0.05, close your parentheses, and in this case, it's going to come out to 24. Now, for the remaining of the chapter, you want to spread from the center of what's called the variation. So, so you want to pick your range, which is similar to what we used for the mid-range. Your actual range is going to be your maximum minus the minimum. So again, we're going to use that MAX formula. So equals MAX and select your data, come up with that value, and then do the same thing for the minimum. Then what you're going to do is subtract the maximum from the minimum and come up with your range. In this case, it's going to be your minimum is going to be 10, your maximum is going to be 45 as we had calculated for the mid-range, and subtracting that from one another, you get 35, which is going to be your range. There's other formulas that we're going to get more into in the next few chapters, but you do want to start looking at the variance. So the variance is going to change from being for a sample as to being for a population. The formula you want to use for a sample is going to be equals var.s versus for the population is going to be equals var.p. Now, similar to the formulas we've been using so far, what you want to do is write an equal sign var.s and then select your data. So in this case, for the sample, it came out to 171. If we were to do it for the population, again, you write equals var, but this time .p, and then you select your data, F1 through F10 in this case. Press enter, and that's going to come out to 154. The next useful formula is you want to find out your standard deviation for the data. And the standard deviation, again, is easily accessible in Excel by using the formula equals STDEV dot S for the sample or dot P for the population. So again, here we're calculating for the standard deviation of the sample for F1 through F10, which is 13. But if we wanted to do this for the population, all we would do is write equals standard deviation for population, which is .p, open parentheses, and then we just select the data that we're doing it for. And that's going to come out to 12.4. So the actual standard deviation for the population is slightly smaller. It's 12.4. Finally, the last formula we wanted to look at is the average deviation. So similar to what we did before, is equals AVE DEV, and then open parentheses, you're going to pick the cells again for your data and press enter, and this comes out to be 11. So there is a useful YouTube for calculating mean standard deviation and variability in Excel, and that's by Excel STAT, so Excel Stat. Hopefully that was useful to you. We'll meet next time to talk about Chapter 5. Thanks.